Hi, I'm Neil Oseman and welcome to the Dark Side Guides. Here I'll be sharing some of the things I learnt during the wallet-crunching, heart-palpitating process of making my 35mm pilot for the Dark Side of the Earth. Before shooting the Dark Side of the Earth pilot, I was used to small crews, simple lighting setups, and an endless supply of cheap DV tape stock. Shooting on film couldn't be more different. In this guide, I'm going to cover all the major decisions you'll have to make, what the extra costs will be versus video, and what each crew member will do on set. The first decision you have to make is gauge. Super 16 or 35mm. The latter is more expensive, but as well as better image quality, 35 gives you the option to shoot at higher speeds than 16 for ultra slow motion. Theatrical films are usually shot at 24 frames per second, since that's the speed that cinema projectors run at. But in the UK, all video equipment is set up to run at 25 FPS. Therefore, your editing process will be much simpler if you shoot at 25. As a bonus, you won't have to hire more expensive flicker-free lighting for your shoot. When your finished film is projected at 24 FPS, it will run 4% slower, but trust me, you'll be the only person who can tell the difference. Aspect ratio is a subject that could fill its own feature-length documentary, but here is the minimum you need to know. When you go to the cinema, the film will be in one of two aspect ratios. 1.85 to 1, often known simply as 185, or 2.35 to 1, aka 235. The problem is that neither Super 16 or 35mm expose images in either of those ratios, so there will always be some compression or cropping of the image to get the frame you want. On either gauge, a 1:85 ratio is achieved by exposing the whole frame and cropping in post. A 2:35 ratio is really only suitable for 35mm. Once again, you can expose the whole frame and crop later. This is known as Super 35 and is what we did for the pickups and miniature shots on the Dark Side of the Earth. The advantage of this method is that in post, you can rack the shot, move it up or down to alter the framing. Alternatively, you can have your camera set up to shoot 2perf, meaning that you only expose the area you need for your widescreen frame, allowing you to get 2 frames into the space that one would normally take up. The advantage here, of course, is that your film stock goes twice as far. The final option is to shoot using anamorphic lenses, which compress the image to half its horizontal size, to be unsqueezed later by the projector. This is how we shot principal photography on Dark Side. Although this option gives the best picture quality because it's using the largest area of negative to record your widescreen image, it's also the most expensive in terms of equipment hire. The heavy camera package and tiny depth of field may also restrict your choice of shots. Whichever format you choose, make sure your DOP shoots a framing chart so that in post-production you know you're dealing with the same frame he was composing in his viewfinder. Another decision to be made is which film stock to shoot on. Contrast, colour saturation and the amount of grain all vary from stock to stock. A faster stock will be able to expose images in lower light, but will be grainier, which will cause problems for your visual effects team if you have one. Normally you'll select a couple of stocks, one for daylight scenes and one for nights. When ordering your stock, remember that one roll, that's usually 400 feet on Super 16 and 1000 feet on 35, lasts about 10 minutes. Your camera kit will typically contain 4 or 5 prime lenses and 1 zoom. Primes are lenses that don't zoom, the advantage being that they contain less pieces of glass and thus produce a better image. Therefore, you should always use the primes unless you need to zoom during the take. This forces you to make a creative decision about what length of lens to shoot with for each setup. Longer lenses will give more flattering close-ups, flattening the perspective and reducing the depth of field, while wider lenses will emphasize perspective and allow a lot more of the image to be sharp. Unlike with video, when shooting on film, your monitor will not give you an accurate representation of what the camera is capturing. The image will come from the video tap, a small video camera attached to the film camera's viewfinder. You can't judge the contrast, exposure or color temperature. Really, it's just a framing guide. Unless you hook up a VCR to this video tap, you won't be able to immediately replay what's been shot. I chose not to do this on Darkside, believing that constantly replaying takes would slow down the shoot. But with hindsight, I think we wasted more time and money by having to shoot more takes, because we weren't sure if we'd got what we needed already. Your camera department will consist of at least 4 people. Under the director of photography, there may be a separate camera operator. The focus puller changes the lenses and measures distances from lens to subject in order to keep the picture sharp. But it's the most junior member of the camera department who has the most important job on the whole crew. He or she is the person who loads the film into the magazines and crucially unloads the exposed negative and cans it. This is a skilled and stressful job, and if they get it wrong, the film can be fogged by stray light and the footage ruined. Tripods, tracking dollies, jibs and other camera mounts will be dealt with by the grip. This can be a very hard role to fill if you're not paying, as can the lighting department roles of gaffer, chief lighting technician, and Sparks, assistant lighting technician. But I learnt the hard way that a lack of Sparks can really kill your schedule, since setting up lighting is the most time-consuming part of any shoot. Your micro-budget sound man will be split into 2 roles, the boom operator and the mixer, who's recording the audio onto a solid-state recorder. At the end of the shoot, they'll give you the rushes on CD. When the command is given, turn over, roll sound, or simply roll, this is the sound mixer's cue, not the camera operator's. Sound always rolls first, since it's infinitely cheaper than film stock.
And roll please.
Spec.
1 take 1.
When the camera's at speed, the operator will shout,
Mark it.
You wait for the operator to call set before continuing.
Camera set.
Then at last the first AD calls
Action!
All the director has to do is sit back, watch the take and call cut at the end.
Cut. Cut there please.
If everyone's happy with the take, it just remains to check the gate, making sure there's no dirt behind the lens before moving on. So, how much did all this cost? Here's how it stacked up on the dark side of the earth. The figures are for a 4-day hire period and an hour's worth of 35mm stock, and we got cheap deals on everything save insurance. Camera and grip hire, £1,650. Lighting hire, £2,800. Lighting consumables, and this is one to watch out for, a staggering £795. Stock, £430. Equipment insurance, £910. That's a grand total of £6,585 plus VAT. Processing and scanning costs will be covered in the Dark Side Guide to Digital Intermediate. Sadly, it looks as though the tradition of shooting on film will all but disappear in the next few years. So if you've never used the medium that started it all, do it now while you've still got the chance. Good luck.